The warning klaxons aboard the Viridian Nexus had been silent for 3 months. Captain Kythera Voss stood on the bridge of humanity's most underestimated warship, watching the endless void through reinforced transparasteel that had seen better decades. The ship's hull bore scars from countless skirmishes, pockmarks from plasma bolts, welded patches where micrometeorites had breached the armor, and the dulled gleam of metal that had been baked by too many suns. "Another patrol route through. The fringe sectors," muttered Commander Raz Night Whisper from his station, his cybernetic eye flickering as it processed the incoming data streams. High Command really knows how to show their appreciation. The Viridian Nexus was a relic, a Harbinger-class heavy cruiser that predated the current generation of sleek, AI-driven warships by 40 years. While the newer vessels boasted quantum, shields, and nanite repair systems, the Nexus relied on good old-fashioned titanium steel composite armor and the skill of her crew. The Galactic Defense Council had assigned her to the Outer Rim, where pirates and smugglers were considered more of a nuisance than a threat. Kythera's fingers drummed against the command console, a habit she'd developed during her 20-year career. She'd requested transfer to a newer ship 17 times. Each request had been denied with the same form letter. "Your experience is invaluable in maintaining order in the fringe sectors." Diplomatic speak for, "We don't want you anywhere important." The bridge crew, a motley collection of veterans, misfits, and cadets who couldn't secure assignments elsewhere, had grown accustomed to their exile. Engineering Chief Vex Ironheart, whose mechanical limbs clicked softly as he worked, had transformed the aging reactor into something that shouldn't have been possible. Weapons Officer Lyra Starfall, despite her youth, could thread a plasma torpedo through a closing blast door from 50 kilometers away. Navigation Specialist Orion Voidwalker had memorized every asteroid field and gravity well in their sector. They were outcasts serving on a forgotten ship, but they'd forged something resembling a family among the stars. The routine patrol was interrupted by a proximity alert. Sensor operator Zara Nebulaborn straightened at her station, her pale eyes widening as she processed the incoming data. "Captain, we have multiple contacts dropping out of hyperspace, bearing 27 Mark IV. Kythera moved to stand behind Zara's station, studying the tactical display. 63 signatures materialized on the screen, ships of unknown configuration, their hulls reflecting sensor sweeps in patterns that suggested advanced stealth technology. "IFF transponders?" "Negative, Captain. They're not broadcasting any identification codes." The unknown fleet arranged itself in a perfect sphere formation, a tactical deployment that spoke of military precision. These weren't pirates or smugglers. Kythera felt ice form in her stomach as she recognized the formation, something she'd studied in tactical manuals but never expected to encounter in the flesh. "Range to the nearest colony?" she asked quietly. "Proxima Refuge is 14 light minutes away," Orion reported. "Population, 43,000 civilians." The enemy ships began accelerating, their course plotted directly for the defenseless colony. Kythera's mind raced through their options. The Viridian Nexus carried enough firepower to engage a handful of frigates, but 63 unknown contacts of significant mass? The mathematics were brutal. "Communications, patch me through to High Command," she ordered. "Priority Alpha." The response came back within minutes. "Hold position. Reinforcements en route. ETA, 6 hours. 6 hours." The enemy would reach Proxima Refuge in 3. Kythera Voss closed her eyes and made the decision that would define her legacy. "You want to do what?" Commander Night Whisper's voice cracked slightly as he processed his captain's orders. "You heard me correctly, Raz. We're going to engage the entire fleet." Kythera's tone carried the weight of absolute certainty, even as her tactical mind screamed at the impossibility of what she was proposing. The bridge fell silent except for the steady hum of life support systems. 63 unknown vessels, each one outmassing the Viridian Nexus by significant margins, continued their inexorable advance toward Proxima Refuge. Long-range sensors were painting a picture that grew more terrifying by the minute. These weren't just warships, they were predators designed for systematic extermination. "Captain!" Lyra Starfall spoke up from her weapons station, her young voice steady despite the circumstances. "Our torpedo complement is 48 Mark 7 plasma charges and 16 Mark X quantum warheads. Even if every single shot found its mark, we'd scratch their paint," Vex Ironheart finished grimly, his mechanical limbs clicking as he pulled up power distribution schematics. "The reactor's running at peak efficiency, but we can't generate enough juice to punch through." "Whatever shielding they're carrying," Kithara nodded, pacing the length of the bridge. The Viridian Nexus had been her home for 8 years, and she knew every bolt, every circuit, every weakness in her hull. But she also knew something else, something that High Command had overlooked, when they'd assigned her to this forgotten corner of space. "Zara, show me the enemy formation again," she commanded. The tactical display flickered to life, showing the perfect spherical arrangement of the hostile fleet. Kithara studied it intently, her mind parsing the geometric precision with which the ships maintained their positions. "It's beautiful," she murmured. "Absolutely perfect tactical formation. No gaps, no weak points, complete coverage of all attack vectors." "Captain," Orion looked confused. "They're fighting the last war," Kithara said, a smile tugging at the corner of her mouth. "This formation is designed to counter multiple attack vectors from peer adversaries. They're expecting to face other fleets, other battle groups. But we're just one ship," Raz pointed out. "Exactly." Kithara turned to face her crew. "They're not configured to handle a single target approaching from an unexpected vector. Vex, I need you to reroute power from everything non-essential. Life support to minimum, artificial gravity to 20% standard, everything into the engines and shields." "That's going to make things uncomfortable fast," the engineer warned. "We won't be uncomfortable long," Kithara replied. "Either we succeed, or we won't have time to worry about it. Lyra, I want you to prepare a full spread of quantum warheads. Don't arm them yet, just get them ready for rapid deployment." "Yes, Captain." "Orion, plot a course that takes us through the Helix Nebula. I want to use the ionization to mask our approach." The navigator's fingers flew across his console. "That's going to add 40 minutes to our intercept time." 40 minutes we need for preparation." Kithara moved to her command chair, settling into the worn leather that had molded itself to her body over countless hours of duty. "Zara, maintain passive sensors only. I don't want them detecting us until we're ready." The Viridian Nexus altered course, diving into the swirling gases of the Helix Nebula. The ancient warship's hull groaned softly as Vex pushed the engines, beyond their recommended parameters, but she held together. She'd been built in an era when over-engineering was considered a virtue rather than a waste of resources. "Captain," Raz said quietly, "even if we manage to surprise them, we're still one ship against 63. The math doesn't work." Kithara's smile widened. "You're thinking like an admiral, Raz. Sometimes you need to think like a pirate." As the Viridian Nexus ghosted through the nebula, her crew worked with desperate efficiency. In the torpedo bay, Lyra supervised the arming of weapons that hadn't been fired in anger for months. In engineering, Vex coaxed impossible performance, from systems that should have been replaced decades ago. On the bridge, Zara monitored the enemy fleet's progress with the intensity of a hawk watching prey. They had one chance. One perfect, impossible chance. And Captain Kithara Voss intended to take it. The enemy fleet's true nature revealed itself as the Viridian Nexus emerged from the nebula's far edge. Zara's hands trembled slightly as she processed the detailed sensor readings, her face pale in the bridge's dim lighting. Captain, I'm reading massive energy signatures from the lead vessels. These aren't just warships. They're equipped with planetary bombardment arrays. Cathara felt her blood chill. Planetary bombardment arrays were weapons of genocide, capable of sterilizing entire worlds in a matter of hours. The 43,000 civilians on Proxima Refuge wouldn't just be conquered, they'd be eradicated. Life signs? She asked, though she dreaded the answer. Negative, Captain. I'm detecting no organic signatures aboard any of the vessels. They're entirely automated. The implications hit the bridge crew like a physical blow. They weren't facing an invasion fleet. They were looking at an extermination armada, programmed machines designed for one purpose: the complete elimination of human life. My God, Orion whispered. They're going to glass the entire colony. Vex's mechanical limbs sparked as he gripped his console too tightly. Where did they come from? Who built these things? Does it matter? Cathara's voice cut through the mounting panic. What matters is stopping them. Zara, can you identify their command structure? The sensor operator's fingers flew across her interface. There's a central command vessel maintaining formation control. It's the largest signature, roughly twice the mass of the others. Of course, Cathara murmured. Perfect efficiency requires perfect coordination. Take out the command ship, and the others might what? Raz interrupted. Lose coordination for a few seconds before reverting to individual programming. These things are still going to reach Proxima Refuge. Cathara stood, moving to the tactical display. The enemy formation hung in space like a malevolent constellation, beautiful in its lethality. But as she studied it, she began to see something else, something that her years of exile in the fringe sectors had taught her to recognize. They're not just hunting us, she said slowly. They're hunting everyone. This formation, this approach, it's designed for maximum psychological impact. They want any survivors to know that resistance is futile. Survivors? Lyra's voice was barely above a whisper. There have been other colonies, Cathara realized. Other worlds that went silent. We thought it was equipment failure, communication, blackouts. But it was them. The bridge fell silent as the implications sank in. How many worlds had already fallen? How many millions of lives had been snuffed out by these mechanical predators? Captain, Zara said urgently, I'm detecting a change in their formation. They're beginning to spread out. The enemy fleet was transforming, shifting from a tight sphere into a wide dispersal pattern. It was a deployment designed for orbital. Bombardment, maximum coverage, minimum overlap. Time to Proxima Refuge? Cathara asked. 97 minutes, Orion reported. Cathara closed her eyes, feeling the weight of 43,000 lives pressing down on her shoulders. The Viridian Nexus was a single aging warship against an armada of mechanical killers. By every rational calculation, they should retreat, call for reinforcements, and hope the colony could somehow survive long enough for help to arrive. But Cathara Voss had never been entirely rational. Vex, how much power can you give me? The engineer's cybernetic eye whirred as it calculated. If I shut down everything except basic life support and weapons, I can boost our main guns to 130% of normal output. Do it. Captain, that's going to put enormous stress on the focusing arrays. We might get one good volley before they fail catastrophically, Cathara finished. I understand. Lyra, I want you to prepare every quantum warhead we have. Set them for maximum yield, minimum safety protocols. All of them, Captain? Every last one. We're going to get exactly one chance at this. The Viridian Nexus began to accelerate, her aging engines pushed beyond their design limits. Deep in the ship's bowels, Vex worked frantically to redistribute power, knowing that what they were about to attempt would either save 43,000 lives or destroy them all in a burst of uncontrolled fusion. Raz, Cathara said quietly, send a message to High Command. Tell them what we found. Tell them about the automated fleet. And tell them what we're about to do? Kithra smiled grimly. Tell them the Viridian Nexus sends her regards. The forgotten warship raced toward impossible odds, her crew united in purpose despite the mathematics of their situation. They were about to attempt something that had never been tried, something that by all rights should fail spectacularly. But sometimes, Kythera reflected, the impossible was just another word for untested. The Viridian Nexus cut through space like a knife, her hull superheated from the massive energy redistribution Vex had managed to achieve. Warning lights flickered across every console as systems operated far beyond their designed parameters, but the old warship held together through sheer determination and 40 years of solid engineering. 60 seconds to weapons range, Lyra reported, her hands steady despite the tremor in her voice. All quantum warheads armed and ready. Kythera studied the tactical display one final time. The enemy fleet had completed their bombardment formation, spreading across a sphere that would allow them to simultaneously target every population center on Proxima Refuge. The mathematics were elegant in their brutality, maximum destruction with minimum effort. They still haven't detected us, Zara said, wonder evident in her tone. Their sensors are focused on the planet, not on threats approaching from the nebula. Overconfidence, Raz murmured. They've probably never encountered meaningful resistance. Kythera nodded. These automated killers had likely swept through dozens of worlds, encountering nothing but civilian vessels and outdated defense platforms. They weren't programmed to expect a warship to charge directly into their formation. 40 seconds, Lyra announced. Captain, Vex's voice crackled through the comm from engineering. I'm reading stress fractures in the primary power conduits. Whatever we're going to do, we need to do it now. Kythera took a deep breath, feeling the weight of command settle around her like an old coat. Every decision she'd made in her career had led to this moment, this single shot at saving 43,000 innocent lives. All hands, this is the captain, she announced over the ship's internal communications. We are about to engage an enemy force that outnumbers us 63-1. By every tactical manual ever written, what we're about to attempt is impossible. But impossible is just another word for something that hasn't been done yet. She paused, looking around the bridge at her crew, the misfits, the rejects, the forgotten souls who'd found purpose aboard a ship that nobody else wanted. We're going to show them that humanity doesn't surrender. We don't retreat. And we sure as hell don't let innocent people die while we watch. 20 seconds to weapons range, Lyra called out. On my mark, Kythera said, her hand hovering over the firing control. Full spread, maximum yield. Target the command vessel first, then spread across their formation. The Viridian Nexus closed the final distance, her approach masked by the ionization trail she'd picked up from the nebula. The enemy fleet continued their bombardment preparations, completely unaware that death was racing toward them at a significant fraction of light speed. 10 seconds, Lyra whispered. Kythera watched the range counter tick down. 8, 7, 6. Mark, she said quietly. The Viridian Nexus spoke with the voice of concentrated fury. Every quantum warhead in her arsenal launched simultaneously, a spread of destruction that represented the ship's entire offensive capability. The main guns followed a heartbeat later, their focusing arrays screaming as they channeled impossible amounts of energy into coherent beams of annihilation. For a brief moment, the aging warship was transformed into a constellation of destruction, her hull outlined in the brilliant flare of weapons discharge. Then the recoil hit, throwing everyone on the bridge against their restraints as the ship's superstructure groaned under forces it was never designed to handle. Direct hit on the command vessel, Zara shouted over the cacophony of alarms. Multiple secondary explosions across their formation. The tactical display showed chaos where perfect order had existed moments before. The massive command ship had simply vanished, vaporized by the concentrated fury of the Nexus's attack. A dozen smaller vessels tumbled out of formation, their hulls breached by quantum warheads that had found their marks. But even as Kythera watched, the remaining ships began to reorient themselves. They might have lost their command structure, but they were still programmed for destruction. Damage report, she called out. Main guns are offline, Lyra reported grimly. Focusing arrays are slag. Torpedo tubes are empty. Engineering to bridge, Vex's voice crackled through damaged speakers. We've got hull breaches on decks 7 through 12. Emergency bulkheads are holding, but we're venting atmosphere. The Viridian Nexus drifted through space, crippled, but not broken. Around her, the enemy fleet reformed, their numbers reduced, but their threat unchanged. 51 automated killers turned their attention to the single ship that had dared to challenge them. Kythera smiled grimly. They'd struck the first blow, but the battle was far from over. Raz, she said quietly, how long until those reinforcements arrive? 4 hours, 37 minutes. And how long until they finish us off? Her first officer consulted his tactical display. At their current rate of approach, 12 minutes? Kythera nodded. They'd bought time, precious minutes that might allow some of the colony's population to evacuate. It wasn't victory, but it was something. All hands, she announced. Prepare for... She never finished the sentence. The universe exploded around them in a blaze of light and fury. The Viridian Nexus tumbled through space, her hull scarred but intact. What should have been a killing blow had instead been a glancing strike, the enemy's targeting systems confused by the debris field from their destroyed command ship. Damage report, Kythera shouted over the screaming alarms. Hull breach on deck 9, Vex reported, his voice tight with concentration. Sealing now. We've lost main power, running on backup. Fusion cells. Weapons? Offline, Lyra confirmed grimly. But Captain, I'm reading something impossible. Look at the enemy formation. Kythera pulled herself to the tactical display, ignoring the blood trickling from a cut on her forehead. The enemy fleet was in disarray, not from their attack, but from something else entirely. Ships were colliding with each other, their perfect coordination shattered. Zara, what's happening out there? The sensor operator's hands flew across her console. I'm detecting massive system failures across their entire fleet. It's like they're fighting each other. Fighting each other? Raz pulled himself upright, wincing at what was probably a cracked rib. That's impossible. They're all from the same source. Unless, Kythera said slowly, they're not. She studied the tactical display more carefully, watching as the enemy vessels' movements became increasingly erratic. Some were firing on others, their weapon systems apparently malfunctioning or confused about target identification. Orion, can you get me a detailed scan of the debris field from the command ship? The navigator's fingers danced across his cracked console. Working on it, Captain. The interference is... Wait. Captain, I'm reading something in the wreckage. Metal alloys that don't match the other ships. What do you mean? The command vessel was built differently. Different materials, different energy signatures. It's like it was controlling them, but it wasn't one of them. The pieces began to fall into place in Kythera's mind. A control ship. Someone was using these automated vessels as weapons, but they weren't the original builders. Pirates? Raz suggested. Worse, Kythera said grimly. Show me the long-range sensors. I want to know where these things came from. Zara worked frantically with her damaged equipment. I'm picking up an energy trail leading back toward the Epsilon sector. It's faint, but it's there. The Epsilon sector. Kythera's blood ran cold. That was where the research station Prometheus had gone silent 3 months ago, a cutting-edge facility working on artificial intelligence and automated defense systems. They found something, she whispered. The Prometheus crew found these. Ships figured out how to control them, and then... And then what? Orion asked. And then they decided to use them. Kythera's voice was grim. Think about it. 63 perfectly preserved automated warships, just waiting for someone smart enough to figure out their command protocols, someone with access to advanced AI research. The bridge fell silent as the implications sank in. They weren't fighting an alien invasion. They were fighting humans who had decided to become mass murderers. "Captain," Zara said urgently, "the enemy ships are regaining coordination. Whatever was confusing them is wearing off." Kithara looked at the tactical display. The enemy vessels were indeed reforming, though their movements remained less precise than before. Without their control ship, they were operating on backup programming, but that programming was still focused on the destruction of human life. "Time to Proxima Refuge?" she asked. 37 minutes, Orion reported. The Viridian Nexus drifted helplessly, her weapons destroyed and her engines barely functional. Around them, 51 automated killers continued their advance toward 43,000 innocent lives. But Kithara Voss had spent 8 years on this ship, and she knew every circuit, every system, every creative solution that desperation could inspire. "Vex," she said quietly, "how much antimatter do we have in containment?" The engineer's cybernetic eye whirred as it calculated. "Enough for 3 weeks of normal operations." "Why?" "Because we're going to do something that's not normal." Kithara smiled grimly. "We're going to turn the Viridian Nexus into the largest proximity mine in human history." "Captain," Raz said carefully, "that would mean—" "I know what it means, Commander." Kithara's voice was steady. "But 43,000 people are depending on us to stop this fleet, and we're going to stop it." The bridge crew exchanged glances. They all understood what their captain was proposing. It was impossible, insane, and probably suicidal. It was also their only chance. "Orders, Captain?" Lyra asked quietly. Kithara straightened in her command chair, feeling the weight of command settle around her one final time. "All hands," she announced, "prepare for ramming speed." The Viridian Nexus limped toward the enemy formation, her damaged engines straining to build velocity. In engineering, Vex worked with desperate precision, rigging the antimatter containment system for catastrophic failure. A controlled explosion that would turn the aging warship into a weapon of unimaginable destruction. "Containment field destabilizing," he reported, sweat beading on his forehead despite the ship's reduced life support. "We have maybe 10 minutes before the magnetic bottles fail." Kithara nodded grimly. 10 minutes to position themselves perfectly within the enemy formation. 10 minutes to ensure that their sacrifice would cripple the automated fleet beyond repair. "Zara, are you tracking the fleet's movement pattern?" she asked. "Yes, Captain. They're maintaining a loose formation, but they're still advancing on Proxima Refuge. If we can get into the center of their formation, we take out at least half of them," Kithara finished. "Maybe more if we're lucky." The Viridian Nexus continued her final approach, passing through the debris field of the command ship she'd destroyed. Chunks of alien metal drifted past the viewports, silent testimony to the first blow they'd struck against the mechanical killers. "Captain," Lyra said quietly, "the crew is asking about evacuation pods." Kithara looked around the bridge at her people, the misfits and outcasts who had become her family. Raz with his cybernetic eye and dry humor. Vex with his mechanical limbs and stubborn refusal to give up on impossible engineering challenges. Lyra, barely 25 and already one of the finest weapons officers in the fleet. Zara, who could read sensor data like poetry. Orion, who knew every star in their sector by name. "Tell them," she said finally, "that the pods are available. Anyone who wants to leave has my permission and my blessing." She paused, watching the tactical display as the enemy fleet continued its advance. "But also tell them that if we abandon ship now, those automated killers will reach Proxima Refuge in 32 minutes. And after that, they'll move on to the next colony and the next until every human world in this sector is nothing but radioactive ash." The bridge fell silent except for the steady hum of failing systems. One by one, her officers looked up from their consoles. "Captain," Raz said with a slight smile, "where exactly did you think we were going to go?" "The pod bays are kind of a long walk from here," Vex added from engineering, "and I'm not done with this antimatter rig yet." "Besides," Lyra said, her young voice steady, "someone needs to make sure we hit the right target." Kythera felt her throat tighten with emotion. These people, her people, had chosen to stand with her at the end. They could have run, could have saved themselves, but they'd chosen to fight for strangers they'd never met. 5 minutes to antimatter containment failure, Vex reported. The enemy fleet was close now, their massive hulls filling the viewports. The Viridian Nexus was a minnow swimming among sharks, her ancient hull dwarfed by the technological marvels that surrounded her. "Captain," Zara said urgently, "I'm detecting energy buildups across the enemy formation. They're preparing to fire. Let them," Kythera replied. "We're too close now. Any shot that hits us will hit them too." The automated ships seemed to realize the same thing. Their weapons powered down as the Viridian Nexus slipped deeper into their formation. They were trying to move away, to give themselves room to engage. But they were too late. 3 minutes to containment failure, Vex announced. Kythera looked around the bridge one last time, memorizing the faces of her crew. They were going to die, but they were going to die as heroes. 43,000 people would live because of their sacrifice. "All hands," she announced over the internal communications. "This is Captain Voss. In 2 minutes, the Viridian Nexus is going to join the ranks of ships that are remembered forever. We're going to save Proxima Refuge, and we're going to send a message to whoever sent these killers that humanity doesn't surrender." She paused, watching the stars wheel past the viewports. "It has been my honor to serve with you." 1 minute. "To containment failure," Vex reported. "Magnetic bottles are fluctuating. I can't hold them much longer." "You don't need to," Kythera said softly. "You've done enough, old friend. You've all done enough." The Viridian Nexus drifted to the exact center of the enemy formation, surrounded by the mechanical killers that had terrorized the sector. Kythera could see their weapons ports, their sensor arrays, their perfect hulls unmarked by battle. 30 seconds, Vex whispered. "Captain," Raz said quietly. "It's been an honor." "The honor was mine," Kythera replied. The antimatter containment field collapsed. For a brief moment, the Viridian Nexus became a star. The explosion was visible from 3 solar systems away, a brilliant flash that outshone the local sun. When the light faded, 51 automated killers had been reduced to expanding clouds of superheated plasma. The Viridian Nexus was gone, but her sacrifice had saved 43,000 lives. And in the days that followed, as the news of her last stand spread across human space, a forgotten warship and her crew became legends. The galaxy learned that humanity's strength didn't lie in their newest ships or their most advanced technology. It lay in the courage of ordinary people who refused to surrender, who stood against impossible odds, and who proved that sometimes the underrated and overlooked could change the course of history. In the end, that was the greatest victory of all.